Hello and welcome to another video. Today we are going to pull some information from my blooper reels. All right, so we're going to dive right into it. Pulling information from my blooper reels. Basically, what I mean is we're going to look at some of the footage from my racing last year, and it's nice to like kind of look at my fastest laps and see what I did right. But it's very important to look at what you did wrong. And that's what we're going to try to exercise on today is looking back at the footage and the data and whatnot and trying to see what went wrong and trying to eliminate those things so we can stay more on the positive side of things. So today we're going to look at my last two events from last year. They were both at Shannonville Motorsports Park, and I would say that was probably the most difficult race weekend for me. Emotional roller coaster, of course, but uh, I was struggling with the car all weekend, and I at the time I couldn't really put it together. I didn't know if this was a me thing, if this was a car thing, a track thing. I know the surface at the track is kind of known to be a little bit tricky, but I was just not having it. I was quite slow on the first day, and on the second day I launched the car. So it was it was something that was a bit of a struggle. So now we're going to take a look at it and kind of figure out what was going on. See if it was me, see if it was the car, if it was a combination of the two, neither, whatever it is, so we can learn for next time. So let's hop to it. So we're going to jump into the Saturday footage, which was day one of the event. We were running the pro configuration, which kind of borders the track, and yeah, I haven't run this in an extremely long time. I think it was a lapping day like eons ago, and outside of that, I was always just a passenger. So uh, I'm going around and just kind of taking my time. This clip is kind of showing the end portion of a lap and the beginning portion of the lap. I do like this configuration a lot. It does have some cool features to it, a lot of high speed stuff as well. So I personally like this layout a lot. And yeah, you can see I'm not really pushing here. I'm just kind of getting a feel for it. I think this is like end of lap one, beginning of lap two. And you see as I go through this section here, there's no real drama, just kind of putting around, um, just getting a feel for everything. More or less make sure the car's okay and feel what the traction like is like on the track, because I think it was pretty cold that day as well. So just getting a feel for everything as we start off. So this clip here is the end of like my practice lap two, going on to lap three. I kind of felt everything out now. The track's not too bad to drive on right now, so I'm going to push a little bit harder here. And Dory action there on my front wheel drive Civic. I'm kind of like patting the wheel, like, get yourself back in the game here. Don't overdrive the car. Um, and it's kind of weird because that's definitely not a tendency of the car to do something like that. So that did catch me off guard. You can see I corrected once, and then kind of went back to correct it again because I'm like, oh, we're still sliding. I don't get why. So there's a lot of things that happened there. I did trail break in a little aggressively. I carried a little bit too much speed there, but there was also something else that was happening. And we're gonna go and watch another clip here and just kind of see what I'm talking about. So this is the first time session of the afternoon. It's 1 p.m. there. And I'm about to go on to my first hot lap here, and we're just going to bring it through here. The track temp has come up, but still the car's sliding pretty aggressively on me there, and yeah, it's kind of odd that it was doing that. Again, the car's tendency isn't really to rotate like that. I have 255 tires on the rear of the car, and the biggest trait that I've had all season is the stability in the car. So the fact that now it's like it was coming around, it was kind of like snapping around, was a little concerning to me. This is what I'm starting to think. I'm like, okay, maybe it's not me, maybe it's the car. So we're gonna go to another session here. This is my second time session of the afternoon, and I'm going to try to take it a little bit easier here in the turn one, be a lot smoother, make sure I get the power coming out of it, and I want to just kind of roll through here, and it's still coming around on me, and I don't know if you could really hear there, but I heard like a little knock in the chassis, which was a little concerning. I looked over the car after, didn't really find anything that was knocking around or anything like that. So whatever was happening was just kind of happening in that instance. So at this point, I didn't really know what was going on. It just felt like, I was overdriving it. I was pushing too hard because I felt like I was going really slow. So I just kind of wrote off the day as that. So right now we're gonna hop to day 2. So day 2 was on the configuration they call the long configuration, basically the longest way around the track. So we go through the infield, kind of loop into the right area, and come back on basically to the pro circuit. So you can see we went straight here instead of left. I've never run this configuration, so I really needed to kind of come up to understanding it pretty quickly. So I'm just putting around, just getting for a feel. This morning was a little bit colder than the day before. You can see I'm driving with my sweater on, and it just kind of rotated on me, but it was very snappy, and I was going slow. I was going about like 77 kilometers when that happened. If you look here, yeah, it was about 77 kilometers. So why it would snap on me like that, I have no clue. So we're going to go to the next lap, and I'm just going to try to feather the car into that corner, just to see if, okay, the car is broken, I've done something terribly wrong to the suspension, or if it's maybe a track thing or what's going on here. So I took my time into this corner, no drama, no issues. I was kind of getting ready for the snap because I'm now just anticipating the car to rotate. Even while it's on throttle, I'm expecting the car to rotate through that area, which it didn't. So that kind of made me feel like, okay, you know what? I'm definitely driving it wrong. So let me pick up the pace. Let me try to smooth out my input coming in. Maybe not trail in at all. Just be on the throttle the entire way through that corner, and I should eliminate that problem. So this is lap 3 of the practice session. So I'm trying to carry speed in. I'm just trying to be smooth, but it just wants to come around pretty aggressively and quickly. So I had to catch it there, and now I'm starting to think in my head. I'm like, okay, I'm not carrying that much speed through the corner, going about 80 kilometers an hour. The car should not rotate in really most circumstances at 80 kilometers like that. Something's wrong with the car. So I'm now in the mindset of, learn the rest of the configuration, be smooth through that area, and then I'll come back in the paddock, talk with some people, and starting to see, are you having an area in this part of the circuit, or is it just me? So this is lap 4, I guess, of my morning practice, and I'm trying to just ease it in, not really push too hard, and on the exit it snaps, and yeah. Yeah, I was so frustrated at this point. I was mad at myself, mad at the car. That was a very tall curve, and there is still some damage on the car from it. But yeah, I was like, the one thing I was trying to do is just avoid offing the car, because people often talk about how, like, if you go off on this track, um, it's not a fun time. And that curb was about like a foot tall, so maybe a little bit more, and it definitely didn't feel good. So now I want to kind of look back at all of this, and now that we have a few answers on some of the things, try to figure out what was going on this weekend. So we're going to deep dive into one incident from both days and try to figure out what was going on. So first we're going to look at the first kind of incident that happened on the first day. So let's hop to that. We're going to play a little bit slower motion so we can kind of dive into it a little bit. So this is kind of midway through turn one where we're going to start off at. The car is pretty stable. I'm not having to do really anything with the steering wheel. Now I'm hard on the brakes, turning in on the throttle, and now the car is kind of just going crazy. I go to full throttle to save it. But yeah, it was pretty aggressive. So we're gonna go back here a little bit and just kind of see when I transitioned off the brake. So right about there. So I kind of was, I don't even know if I would really call that a full-on commitment to trail braking. I basically was slightly on the brakes until the point where the car was pointed at the apex. And then I'm back to kind of like a maintenance throttle to keep the car balanced, waiting to go to full throttle towards the end of the turn. So I wouldn't call this a trail braking incident. And if we go forward just a bit, the car rotates a little bit after that. I'm still on throttle when the car rotates. So I don't think it was really the braking that caused anything here. Um, and this is kind of the point where like I'm not really sure why the car is doing this. So I gave it a good 90 degrees of correction, and I think that should settle the car down. Now, if you could tell on the track here, there's a little break where I would say it's like the newer pavement breaks to the older pavement. And it's really near the end of the apex of the curbing, like where they have the rumble strips there. And the car kind of rotates again. But this is where I was hearing a little faint knock from the back of the car. And as soon as I'm hearing that, I now have to go quickly to like 180 degrees of counter steer and almost hold it there for a bit until the car came back. So very odd. It's not a tendency of this car to do that. Um, so right there, I don't know if I would ever call that driver error. There's definitely some things I could have done to avoid this, knowing that the car was doing it, which is what I did later on in the day. Basically, I just had to drop my speed and be ultra smooth through it. Basically, at the early apex point of that corner towards the middle, I almost had the steering wheel straight, just going to go over it straight just to make sure the car doesn't want to snap out. So I kind of drove around an issue because I couldn't figure out what was going on, if it was the track or the car. So at this point, that's what I would write that off as. It was the track or the car at the point. At this point, not many people were having that same incident. I know one of my buddies in BRZ or GTA 6, the 86 chassis. He had a big slide through there, but I think he was hooning around. So I don't think this was really something that was going on with a lot of people. So I'm now leaning more towards something's going on with the car. So let's hop to the day 2 incident and see what we can figure out about that one. Okay, so we are at day 2. This is the big incident when I went off the track. So right now the car is at the exit of turn 3, I guess you would call it in this configuration. So we're playing in slow motion again, just to see if there's anything leading up to it, right? So now we're coming out of it. There's like a little straight section here. This gives you a good chance to kind of set up the car for the turn. And as you can see, coming into the turn, I'm on the throttle. So I've already done my braking. I'm on throttle the entire time through this. Now, you see, I transitioned off of the throttle to the brake there. So we're going to go back really quickly and just see when that happened. Was this something that caused the spin or not? So we're going to go back a little bit. So as I'm transitioning off there, there's two things that are going on. I'm starting to feel the back get a little wobbly. You can see a little bit of bouncing that's going on there. And if you look at my current trajectory, I'm starting to think I might be carrying too much speed and I may be going off. So I haven't experimented at all with the outside portion of the track in this area. And I'm kind of scared, honestly, coming into here. I'm not feeling that confident in the car, the track, anything right now. Um, so I do a big no here. I transition onto the brake. I think I gave maybe like 10% brake pedal pressure, and it put the car right off. Just in that little transition phase, it put the car right off. Now you can see how far I am. I'm probably 70% of the way to the outside of the track, meaning that I probably could have stayed on throttle just like a hair, and I maybe would have just touched the outside curbing on the exit there. Probably would have been fine. Um, but this is all now we're evaluating at slow motion and everything. So really what I want to say is what started this one was the lift and the quick brake tap to try to slow down the speed. I was feeling pretty confident in doing so because I've gotten to now the end of the corner. If I pass the apex point, um, I'm thinking now that there's not a whole lot of energy and load going through the tires. I could probably get away with that. Apparently not. So the car is transitioning now. I am full throttle trying to bring this back, and it is not. So I go back onto the brake just to try to hopefully minimize the actual damage that's about to happen. Luckily, the angle that I hit this curb on, I didn't roll the car. You never want to hit something like that, like dead on sideways. But you can see the curb's kind of turning there, so I think that was the saving grace. And yeah, that was that was rough. Um, but yeah, so in that incident there, I'm gonna say that that was more a driver error, provoked by the car and the track, whatever was going on with that. So that one, driver error. The first one, I wouldn't call it necessarily a driver error. I would think that's more the car at this point. So I've reviewed this footage before, and I've been trying to get some answers as to what's been going on. So one thing I have found out is that the paving in those two corners really seem to be the only issues I was having, and the paving in those two corners are not the greatest. And I think that the tire pressures that I was running wasn't really allowing me to keep the car as stable as it needed to be. I was running tire pressures that I would normally run at other tracks like Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, Toronto Motorsports Park. I was running those type of tire pressures because I know the car works well on those tire pressures at those tracks, and I didn't necessarily have the data at the time to really figure out what was the tire pressure I needed to run there. So I just kind of went to the default, hope for the best. In this case, no bueno. The next thing that was going on is something that I only discovered, I'd probably say like 3 or 4 months after this event. I was doing some work, some modifications on the car, and I took one under shields off, and I was looking at the rear sway bar. And I'm going to put some pictures here. The rear sway bar was actually contacting the chassis. So what was happening is that in these turns, if you kind of look at it, they're a little banked. They have a little bit of camber to them. So what was actually happening is that as the rear was getting loaded up, more than usual at the other tracks, because they don't really have too many banked curves there, or sorry, banked turns. What was actually happening is that I was putting so much energy into the sway bar that that knock I was hearing was actually the sway bar contacting the chassis, basically turning my 24 mil sway bar into a 4,000 mil, whatever you want to call it, sway bar, and making it not move anymore, and transitioning all that energy into the chassis, which made the car extremely stiff right away. So I think it was a combination of the the surface and the fact that there was some camber going on in those corners that was just causing the car to get in a situation where the rear sway bar would contact. I did have one incident of this earlier on in the year at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. It wasn't necessarily that it was cambered, but I trail braked into a very fast corner, and the way the car snapped on me was very unexpected, and it never did it before that or after it until this weekend. So I kind of just wrote that off as a driver error, but now having more information, I think that whatever was going on with the sway bar has been going on for a very long time. Because I was looking at the area there, you can kind of see there's some rust going on there too. So, so yeah, this was very important to resolve. I did contact the company that makes the sway bar. We kind of came up with a solution to what was going on. They had a spacer kit for the bar to move it further away for different chassis. But it looked like on my car I needed to do that. None of the chassis brackets were bent or anything like that to cause it, so they didn't really know why. I didn't really know why. We just kind of went that route to band-aid the solution, and it's been working fine. I've been driving the car ever since, and I haven't heard that knock anymore. I tried to test it out to see if it'll do that. It's not doing that anymore. So that was a big win, because without that solution, if I was to come back to this track next year, um, I would have probably just got frustrated right off the bat, over pushed, and who knows what I would have done. So yeah, there's a lot of things to kind of dissect there. Some driver error stuff, some of the car stuff. But now this is why it's really important to review this stuff. Because if I was to ignore it, come back to it, who knows what would have happened. If I was to assume it was a driver thing, I would be trying to drive around a problem forever and never really optimizing the car. And if I assumed it was a chassis thing without ever knowing what it was, I would have just thrown new coilovers, bushings, who knows what at the car, never actually solving the problem. So it's really important to analyze some of your faults, I guess you could say, because that will allow you to sort out the car and yourself in a better way for future events. So now having that, even it's just a small issue, but it caused a big problem. Having that sorted out, now I have the confidence to really trail brake the car into a higher speed corner without having a random behavior happen, which is going to pay huge dividends later on in the future when I come back to this track, other tracks, higher speed tracks. Having the confidence in the car is 100% a big deal. Like if you don't have the confidence in the car, you don't really drive well. So yeah, that's it for this video. I know I talked a lot, but it's really, really important. I really want to stress this to everyone that this is something that you should almost make a habit of looking at your videos, and don't just find the fastest lap and this is what I did right. I'm just going to keep on emulating that. If you found a couple of laps you were struggling, kind of look into it and just be like, okay, this is what worked, this didn't work. Now I know what to do in the future. So that's it for me today. Thank you guys for sticking around and watching the whole video. There's going to be a lot more content coming out very soon. I know I took quite a bit of a break, but there's a good reason behind that I'm going to share with you guys in the next couple of videos. But yeah, if you like this type of stuff, I'm going to be doing more of these type of track analytical videos. Subscribe to the channel because there are going to be many more coming up soon. If you like how I describe some of this stuff, or you have some kind of suggestions, leave a comment below. I do read all the comments and I try to get back to everyone as quick as possible. And leave a like to let me know that you kind of like this stuff and I should make more of it. But that's going to be it for today. Thank you guys again for watching. Till the next one. Take care.